Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. This newscast consists of late-breaking information created by the world's truth activists which lay bare the deceptions being perpetrated by the New World Order. The work of these activists appearing on the Truth Broadcast Network should not be construed as an endorsement of them or their other work. That said, these videos were specifically chosen by the network and we thank the tireless activists for producing them. During this broadcast it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the nightly news at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
This morning, I checked 4 websites, as I do every day. I looked at my surfing conditions in the area, I checked local news, I looked at national news, and I looked at a little bit of the tech website that I go to every day. By the time I'd finished my cup of coffee, I'd actually interacted with over 120 different companies. I checked 4 websites, 120 companies. Very few people understand that. Very few people recognize that the interactions they have online are far more expansive than just the websites that they think they're visiting each day.
And so we've built Lightbeam to help each one of us understand what tracking is occurring and what kind of information we're sending out in our daily lives.
It's a Firefox add-on that provides users a view into all of their online interactions.
Lightbeam is part of a much larger mission. We build Firefox for the same reason, so that when you use Firefox, you have a base level of protection, a base level of flexibility, and a base level of figuring out what's going on and making some changes if you should want to.
Not only do you have the content that the publisher is making available, but now you have like buttons and tweet this. Each one of those elements that the page is loaded for you is being provided by a different company. And so in that one moment that you see that website, all those other companies are also seeing you at that site.
We see Lightbeam as both a teaching tool for the people who use it and also a learning tool for all of us.
When we take back that curtain and we expose kind of all of the interactions that users have, it's not necessarily good or bad. I think the bad that we're focusing on here is the lack of awareness, the lack of understanding. The first step in any of these types of issues is understanding all of those different companies you're interacting with. And it really is a Wizard of Oz moment to kind of see that behind the scenes true functioning of how the web operates.
Story, the deadly standoff in Ukraine that has now spread to the country's south. There have been dozens of fatalities and scores of injured people in the port city of Odessa, which has been relatively peaceful following February's coup in Kiev. These pictures we received from a local TV station in the area, the trade unions building here, where most of the supporters of greater autonomy have been forced out after trying to seek shelter there. However, the standoff is still continuing with a group of about 50 anti-Kiev protesters trapped on the roof. A 1,000-strong mob had besieged the building. More than 30 people have been killed, according to police. Some of the victims died after jumping out of the windows. That is according to eyewitnesses. Others choked to death on smoke after the building was set on fire. Others also were shot. Now, scores of injured people have been lying on the streets crying for help, and at the same time, masked men in black clothes have been seen threatening people on the streets with machine guns. The attackers are mostly football ultras, we are told, joined by members of far-right groups.
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. During this broadcast it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the nightly news at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
On the program, Ukrainian troops are storming the eastern city of Slavyansk, which is held by anti-government protesters. The local self-defense forces report 1 man has been killed and anywhere up to 3 helicopters have been downed. The Interior Ministry says 1 pilot is dead and several soldiers injured I talked a short while ago with RT's Paula Slier. She is in the region.
We are hearing from a local self-defense commander that at least one helicopter has dropped soldiers near the town of Slavyansk, and reports just in suggest that one pilot has been killed and another has been taken hostage. There is heavy fighting happening in the vicinity of the railway station. Locals have been telling us that they've been hearing cannons being fired in the outskirts of the town. We also understand that at least one checkpoint has been taken. Now, several checkpoints have come under attack. Reinforcements by these self-defense units are being brought to checkpoints that man and control all the roads in and out of Slavyansk. We spoke to one resident inside the besieged town.
Early in the morning, a major operation on the city began. Armored vehicles came to the outskirts of the city, where the fighting is going on. In the center of the city, troops are being dropped in by helicopters. There are also right sector members there.
We also understand that at least 8 armored vehicles have been seen right up close near the town of Slavyansk. We are hearing reports of injuries. We also understand that the police station has come under attack. There is heavy fighting being reported in the vicinity of the police station. Now, as you can well imagine, telephone lines are very, very poor. We're struggling to speak with people inside the city. The town has been expecting this. There is an atmosphere of panic and of fear. Indeed, the reports have been taken seriously that the Ukrainian army is planning to launch such an attack. And at the same time, we understand that the Ukrainian army is using both ground troops and air support.
A 2-hour meeting of the United Nations Security Council, the 13th time the Council meets on the Ukrainian crisis, a second time this week. A traditional blame game ensued, with the US and West blaming Russia for the increased chaos and violence in eastern Ukraine, accusing Moscow of lies and militarizing the conflict. In the meantime, it was Russia that called for this session to take place, basing the urgency of the meeting on what it called a resuming of militarization against its own people by the Kiev government, citing unraveling events as criminal misadventures that could lead to even more catastrophic consequences than the violence that has already taken place. According to Russia, the spoken intentions of the coup-appointed Kiev government vowing to refrain from violence point to hypocrisy, as words stand far from deeds. This Friday at the UN, Russia called for the West to stop toying with the situation instead of telling Russia where and how to keep its own troops on its own territory. Russia again reiterated that it believes the US and EU have stood in the way of a peaceful solution to the crisis by stirring events on the ground that escalated each time a visit of a US official took place. At the Security Council, the US accused Russia of building a case for intervention, saying Kiev chooses peace while Moscow chooses seizing more territories. While Russia says the outbreak of further violence in Ukraine needs to stop and returning to the Geneva agreements is key, Ukraine's representative at the UN said events unraveling in eastern and southeastern Ukraine are aimed at tackling highly armed militants on the ground, and that the only military in the east of the country are Russian supporters. The meeting wrapped up with Russia reminding the Council that forceful change of power always leads to destabilization, and that Russia had suggested a variety of formats for dialogue throughout the crisis and would never deny the implementation of any agreements that have been reached, saying that the word lie that the West uses against Russia can also be a selective interpretation of one's own position, obviously pointing at Washington's position and participation in the way events have unraveled. The Security Council meeting wrapped up this Friday with Russia calling for the Council to agree that all of its members are interested in the halting of violence, as was recently agreed in Geneva. Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
Душно и хмуро, сердце ноет, не находит покоя. Ночью снилось мне кровавое утро, и скорее
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. During this broadcast, it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the Nightly News at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
It's 90 degrees today, and thus, global warming is kicking in. Anyway, I wanted to discuss this Sheriff Gillespie saying that he's now going to go after the protesters who were, quote-unquote, aiming in on police officers, and that, their actions will not go unpunished. What about the fucking snipers that were up on the hill aiming in on them first? What about them motherfuckers? Are you gonna fucking arrest their asses? They should have never been there in the fucking first place. When the fucking tables get turned on you, now we gotta do something. Now I gotta hide behind my badge and go punish them. That's ridiculous. First off, the BLM had no fucking right to be there taking Mr. Bundy's property. At all. At all. They had no right to do that. I don't give a shit if they claim he have a fucking $1 million debt. You can't just go stealing people's property. And you as the sheriff should have been the one to stand between the feds and Mr. Bundy. But you, sheriff, failed to do your fucking job. Hence the reason the militia came in. Because you failed to do your job. We don't have debtors' prisons in America anymore. Well, we're not supposed to, but you see fathers and mothers every day who supposedly didn't pay their child support. You see them every day getting put in jail because of their debt. Mr. Bundy supposedly had a debt. The BLM could have done anything, like put a lien on his property or, whatnot. But they didn't. They chose to come in and they chose to commit animal abuse where they brought helicopters down and tormented these poor cows, bulls, and calves. And then some of them were even killed. And then they tried to hide the abuse and bury the cattle. If you have a debt, you want to take somebody's property to quote-unquote repay the debt or, get money from the debt, why are you going to kill something that could get you money, that could earn you money? That makes no fucking sense. That makes no sense. They sat there and they killed these cattle they could have, got money from and paid their debt off with, but instead they decided to torture, abuse, and maim these cows as if to teach Mr. Bundy a lesson, not because of a debt. And you, sheriff, should know the fucking difference between confiscating somebody's property because they owe a debt, so to speak, like a lien, and animal abuse. The rest of the country seemed to see it. How come you couldn't? Oh, is it because you stand to earn something from this sheriff? You stand to gain something monetarily from this BLM, Harry Reid bullshit? I mean, I've been doing a lot of research, Sheriff, and it doesn't seem like your hands are too fucking clean. And you don't really want people to know about that. Thus, you got to go after the quote-unquote militia. And the quote-unquote is your undersheriff saying that. A quote-unquote militia. He kind of rolls his eyes about it. Hey, undersheriff, read the fucking Constitution. Militias are completely legal, and militias are we the people. And they had every right to be there because something very unjust was happening. And that was tyranny. And instead of you, sheriff, standing on the side of we the people like you are supposed to, you stood idly by and let these cows and calves and bulls be tortured. And then you want to put the blame on the militia as if they're the bad guys. They're the bad ones, while leaving those snipers up in the hills exempt from punishment. Why were they there, Sheriff? It's obvious the feds came looking for a gunfight, Sheriff. Not the militia members. The militia members only acted after sniper rifles were pointed at them first. So let's not pussyfoot around what really happened, Sheriff. Let's not pretend that those snipers up in the hills weren't there and that they weren't going to pick off people as they so chose. Because they were. Because if they weren't going to do it, they would have never been there in the fucking first place. So how is it you're allowed to show up with guns, but everybody else is not allowed to show up with their guns? We the people have a Second Amendment right, Sheriff. And I hate to tell you, Sheriff, you are not military. You too are a civilian. You are not above the law, and you do not get special privileges just because you wear a fucking badge. I can make a badge too if I want. A little brownie button badge if I want. Doesn't mean I get to hide behind it. And guess what, Sheriff? Neither will you. The blood from these cattle, these calves, these babies who died because they were separated from their mothers, the blood from these bulls and cows that were slaughtered at by the BLM hands falls on you. The blood is on your hands, Sheriff, because you stood idly by and allowed it. You're supposed to be the line between us and them. You're not supposed to just allow them to come into your fucking county anytime they want and do whatever the fuck they want. You know damn well what happened there is unconstitutional. You know damn well you're the one who frickin' raised your right goddamn hand. Oh, I shouldn't even be. Sorry, God, I didn't mean to damage your name there. Your damn hand, you raised your frickin' hand and swore an oath. If you can't keep the fucking oath you swore, Sheriff, step the fuck down. Instead of taking bribes, instead of accepting little awards, instead of accepting gratuities, step the fuck down so somebody who's constitutional can stand the fuck up. How dare you demonize these militia members? How dare you? When they were doing the job that you were supposed to be doing. How dare you?
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. During this broadcast, it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the Nightly News at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
Is this the smoking gun on Benghazi? Did the White House shape what Ambassador Susan Rice would tell the American people that the attack on the consulate stemmed from protest over a video and not terrorism? It's laid out in an email from Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, and South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy is on the House Oversight Committee at the heart of this investigation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Now, you've been trying to get a lot of this information for quite some time, and in all likelihood, you're trying to get more information. But based on these emails, what do you conclude right now?
Well, it's a compelling piece of evidence that the White House was preoccupied with spinning their policy more so than they were telling the American people the truth. I mean, we suspected all along that they were preoccupied with pushing this video narrative and keeping it away from a discussion about their policy. But this just proves what we suspected. But Bill, Congress didn't get this email. And that's the point that I would stress to you and your viewers. This email came because of a court action by a private entity. After 20 months, Congress still doesn't have all the emails, and apparently we're not willing to do anything to force the administration to give us this email. How many more emails are there like this? And is it going to be another 20 months before we get those?
In one of the emails, 2 points are made. This apparently is written by Ben Rhodes. Quote, to underscore that these protests are rooted in an internet video and not a broader failure of policy. And another one to reinforce the president administration's strength and steadiness in dealing with difficult challenges. How does that frame the debate?
Well, Bill, let me give you this little piece of advice. When you really are steady and strong, you don't have to remind people to say it. Secondarily, there is not one scintilla of evidence to support the video narrative. Not one. But he was out there saying GM is alive and Al-Qaeda is dead. Remember that? That was the mantra during the campaign. So God forbid that we actually disclose a month or so before a general election that our policy is a miserable failure in Libya. So, of course, they're going to discuss something else. But it's been 20 months, Bill, 20 months, and we didn't even get this email. Well, Congress is supposed to provide the oversight, not Judicial Watch.
What the White House will argue is that this only reinforces what we were saying in the very beginning, that we were working on the best assessment we had at the time.
Great.
How would you react to that?
Here's the first follow-up question. Cite for me all of the intelligence and all of the evidence indicating that a video was connected to Benghazi. Go. Start. Introduce your first piece of evidence. There is none. There was nothing to support this narrative other than a desire to deflect attention away from their feckless foreign policy. There is no evidence. Morell couldn't cite it. Rice can't cite it. Carney can't cite it. There is no evidence supporting the video. So rather than say we don't know what caused the attack, they didn't want to discuss policy, so they went to this video in Cairo or this narrative that somehow some filmmaker in California is the cause of our 4 murdered Americans, because God forbid we can't say it's our policy. Make them tell you, what evidence did you rely on? You say it was the best evidence available? Cite the evidence.
What's next now?
You know, you would hope that my colleagues in the House, particularly leadership, would be so infuriated that a private entity is getting more information from this administration than we are, that we would actually start using the tools that we have at our disposal to compel the information being produced. If this email existed for 20 months and we just got it, what else exists that we don't know about?
Does this change what you have thought about how Hillary Clinton handled this, or not?
It doesn't change what I thought, because I suspected all along. In fact, one of these days I'll be able to prove, I just don't know if it'll be to your grandkids or not, but one of these days I'll be able to prove there was a concerted effort to cover up what happened in Benghazi, to not make it a reflection of the president or the person who's going to run for president. The 7th floor at the State Department at some point is going to have to explain why they went with a video narrative instead of the evidence. Who made the decision? Look at the goal number 1, to stress that we provide security for our facilities. When was that a goal? Because it certainly wasn't a goal on September the 10th. Maybe it was the day after, but her department denied all the requests for extra security. And Bill, if you're having to tell people that you're steady and strong and resolute, chances are you're not.
Trey Gowdy from South Carolina, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network, and welcome to the Nightly News. This newscast consists of late-breaking information created by the world's truth activists, which lay bare the deceptions being perpetrated by the New World Order. The work of these activists appearing on the Truth Broadcast Network should not be construed as an endorsement of them or their other work. That said, these videos were specifically chosen by the network, and we thank the tireless activist for producing them. During this broadcast, it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the nightly news at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
I've recently been getting some emails that look convincingly like messages from YouTube asking me to confirm my account. Look, it says it's from YouTube, and the text reads like something from a YouTube email, and the link to click on to confirm my account is a link on YouTube's website. Except it's not. The text of the link certainly is a youtube.com address, though it doesn't go anywhere, but the website the link goes to when you click on it is definitely not YouTube. Now, most people know that you can put a link to any address on any text you want, but this phishing attack is maliciously taking advantage of the fact that typically when you paste a link into an email, it automatically just links to that link. So we've all been habituated to think that if we see a link and click on it, we're going to that address. But of course, in this case, we're not. The site this link takes you to looks convincingly like YouTube, but the URL definitely isn't. And if you clicked on the link without looking carefully and didn't pay attention to the address, you might even try to log into this fake Google login. And then, I don't know what happens, but I bet it's not good, because you just gave your Gmail YouTube login away to a malicious stranger. If anyone watching this video is clever enough to figure out exactly what these attack sites do, or who's behind them, I'm all ears. Or if you work for YouTube, perhaps you could send out a message to all of your users warning of attacks like this. But for now, just know that if you see an email that looks like it's from YouTube asking you to verify your account information, don't click on the link.
Let's look at what the word anarchy really means. Again, you got to break it down. From the Greek prefix an, which means without or the absence of. And the Greek noun archon, they're written in Greek script, which means master or ruler. And again, I mean externally. One who externally rules another or claims to be the master of another. That's what the term archon means in its connotation. Anarchy, as we can see by putting these together, does not mean without rules. The word archon does not mean rules. Okay? Because there's always going to be rules in effect called natural law, the laws of morality. It means rulers, imposed rulers. That's what archon means in Greek. It literally means anarchy now, putting it together. An, absence of, archon, master or ruler. The absence of masters or rulers. Externally imposed masters or rulers. Meaning, when we put it together, okay, it means without rulers, without masters. Now, if you give people that term, no masters, no rulers, no masters, no slaves, what word are they going to associate those phrases with? Freedom. But if you tell people what does anarchy mean to you, what do you associate it with, what are they going to tell you? Chaos, which is the exact opposite. That's in that other column. Okay? They have deliberately obfuscated the meaning of the word through a mind control technique called endless repetition. If I could keep telling you a word doesn't mean what it means, that's not a projector, that's a hammer. Hey, could you check out my hammer over there and make sure it's projecting the image on the board correctly? You know, the bulb burned out in my hammer. I might need to go buy a new hammer. If I kept doing that endlessly for years and years and years, people would start calling that device a hammer. If I got enough people to keep calling it that. So they've gotten enough people to call freedom chaos. Think about that. They've gotten enough people to believe that the absence of the state of slavery means chaos instead of freedom. It's almost unfathomable. It's almost incomprehensible. The mind job that's been done on this species. It's almost incomprehensible. Anarchy is the state of existence where there are no masters and no slaves. Therefore, what it really means is the absence of slavery, or in other words, true freedom. That's all it means. I prefer to call it anarchony. Okay? Keeping the entire word archon instead of taking out the O-N. Okay? If we keep that there and call it anarchony, and I say I'm an anarchonist, people will ask, well, what the hell is that? And then you could really break the word down and say the absence of archons, the absence of those who would claim to be masters over a population of slaves. That's what an anarchonist is. It's saying that's illegitimate, that's unnecessary, and that we need to do away with that state of existence. Okay? So we look at these two, this true divide again, the statist and the anarchist. I call the statist the archonist. This is somebody who believes in the legitimacy of the archons, the rulers. Okay? And I'll be talking about in future presentation the concept of the archons more in future presentations. And the anarchist, as it's been called, I think should be called the anarchonist. Because that's somebody who knows that there's no legitimacy to the mastery over other people, or the rulership externally over others, keeping them as slaves or subjects. There's no legitimacy to that. And that's the one true divide that separates all consciousness here on the earth. The real divide and the real enlightenment comes. Do you understand there's no legitimacy to slavery, or do you continue to believe that there's legitimacy to slavery? That's the divide in consciousness that has to be bridged.
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. During this broadcast, it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the Nightly News at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
Well, the Whiz Kid is back, everybody. You remember the teenager who got arrested for taking a bathroom break into a reservoir which supplies drinking water to the city of Portland, Oregon? Well, it looks like he's caused a new kind of water feature. That's right. But let's back up a little bit. In the early morning hours of April 17th, a security camera caught 18-year-old Dallas Daylin urinating into a reservoir through an iron fence. The city administration was so worried over the apparent pollution that it had decided to flush the 38 million gallons of water into the sewers at a cost of $175,000. But after a change of heart and negative tests for contamination, officials have decided not to flush the water. Instead, it'll be moved to a nearby empty reservoir as part of an experiment to see if the city's reservoirs can be used as water features in parks after they're phased out of use in 2015. The city's plan is to watch the water and see how long they can keep it clear, free of algae and teen urine.
Well, today is May Day. May 1st commemorates International Workers' Day, a time when demonstrators typically denounce low wages and call for equal opportunity. This year, it was marked by tens of thousands of people taking to the streets around the world. And while some of the rallies have been peaceful, others did turn dangerous. Here's a quick look at what those protests looked like, including an RT crew caught in the middle of the action.
So we're just going to show you what's going on here in one of the front lines where the opposition and the police are clashing at the moment. You can see the water cannon trucks being used and the tear gas. And the protesters have been trying to put barricades up. The tear gas coming through, we're going to put the mask on.
Some of the largest May Day events took place in London, Athens, and Istanbul. And there were also protests here in the United States. Here's RT's Marina Portnaya with a look at the demonstration in New York City.
What do we say to the president? Justice for workers and immigrants!
A fight for higher minimum wage is one of the main issues drawing New Yorkers onto the streets on this May Day. Citizens have organized demonstrations in a variety of parks throughout Manhattan. In the evening, hundreds, possibly thousands, will take part in a march culminating near City Hall. America's income inequality and growing gap between rich and poor affects so many citizens, and those who work full-time jobs say they still don't make enough to afford a decent quality of life.
We're seeing some of the largest corporate profits in the history of our nation, yet we're also living at a time where a good amount of folks are still living in poverty, and we're seeing poverty rise on a lot of different levels, and we're seeing the disappearance of a middle class.
The problem is that unions are being eviscerated, and with them the middle class, and the chance at the American dream, which has always been based on the ability to move upward and improve your life, and that hasn't happened.
Income inequality is one of the largest problems in our country right now. Well, you look at the statistics, and the average CEO in a fast food company makes 1,000 times that of his average employee. You look at the Starbucks CEO makes $92,000 an hour, like $9,200 an hour, while his average employee makes minimum wage, and that's completely unacceptable. We want 15 now.
Citizens of all ages and races are joining forces to demand better pay and equal pay between men and women. Fast food workers in particular are demanding the right to unionize, and many say a big problem is that in America, too many jobs are being neutralized by technology. Now, there's a bunch of different reasons as to why New Yorkers have come out to take part in May Day, but the overall string that ties them together is that the majority of them are lacking confidence in the U.S. labor force, in the U.S. economy. They say that years ago, U.S. officials promised them that things would be better by now, that jobs would be more available, that salaries would raise. They're still waiting, they say, for that to happen. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
So this is the newest propaganda piece that they're releasing on 370, and they're talking about how they misinterpreted the projected flight plan with the actual flight plan. How do you mix that data up, guys? Come on, you're supposed to know your stuff. Let's listen to how they're going to explain this one away, guys.
Fred, stunning details in a document attached to that interim report laying out precisely what was done when the plane first was noticed missing. Malaysian Airlines Operations Center confuses the search for the first 2 hours, misreading their computer data, interpreting what was a projected flight plan with the real flight, telling air traffic controllers they were in touch with the aircraft, that it was in fact in Cambodian airspace. Also in that report, the cockpit to air traffic control recordings detailing the last hours, the last minutes that the flight was in touch with the ground.
Malaysia 370 straight to Beijing via Pibos Alpha departure, 6,000 feet, squawk 2157.
Beijing Pibos Alpha 6,000, squawk 2157, Malaysia 370, thank you.
12:41 a.m. Saturday, March 8th. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 takes off from Kuala Lumpur for what was supposed to be a 6-hour flight to Beijing. 227 passengers and 12 crew members are on board the Boeing 777. For the next 38 minutes, all seems normal. The plane climbs to cruising altitude and is on a direct path to the Chinese capital. 1:19 a.m. Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control instructs Flight 370 to make contact with Vietnamese controllers. The crew confirms in what would be the final transmission from the cockpit.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9, right. Malaysian 370.
2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder stops responding and Flight 370 disappears from Kuala Lumpur radar. 17 minutes pass before anyone asks about the now missing plane. At 1:38 a.m., air traffic controllers in Ho Chi Minh City contact their counterparts in Kuala Lumpur, who ask controllers in Singapore, Hong Kong and Phnom Penh if they've heard from Flight 370. None of them have. Meanwhile, we now know...
So right here they're talking about a mysterious turn, but the flight radar imagery shows the plane continuing and just kind of jutting off to the left a little bit. Now I know that there was some videos done on this when it first happened, but still, here's the mainstream today coming with breaking news, and they're telling you this plane turned around, and I still can't find any trajectory showing this plane turning around on any of the flight radars. Anything, guys. Busted right there. Still covering something up.
Not clear what those first 2 confusing hours, trying to figure out where the plane was when it was first noticed missing, not clear what impact that had. But since the plane disappeared into the ocean, not a trace of it found, Fred.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into Truth Broadcast Network and welcome to the Nightly News. During this broadcast, it is especially important to see the evidence being presented, so try to watch the Nightly News at www.truthbroadcastnetwork.com.
All right, YouTube, Tactical Tony 702 just got off work. I'm going to take a second to do this PSA, public service announcement. I'm going to do everybody a favor. I'm not running for sheriff, but I am going to campaign against you, Joe Lombardo. You are a tyrant bootlicker. You are a traitor. You are a socialist aligned with Obama, Gillespie, and Harry Reid. You guys are all in bed together in more ways than one. All right? People need to know that Joe Lombardo is a freaking traitor, all right? Him and Gillespie almost sacrificed all their men out there and got a whole lot of innocent people hurt out there at the Bundy Ranch on April the 12th. I was there, Joe Lombardo. I fucking looked in your face and I told you were a coward. And I told you, we do not work for you. You work for us. You are not a constitutional undersheriff and you will not be a constitutional sheriff. And as far as Latinos out there, you need to wake the fuck up, all right? If you're going to vote so blindly and fucking have your head up your ass every time you go to the polling fucking station because they get you out there to vote for them, it's bullshit. You need to vote for anybody but Joe Lombardo. Joe Lombardo is a fucking terrorist traitor, aligned with Homeland Security, aligned with Sheriff Gillespie, aligned with Obama, aligned with everything that's bad about this country. He's in bed with all of them, Harry Reid, all of them, all right? And he has all the money in the damn city to run this campaign. So I already think voting is fraudulent anyway. So it probably won't even be a fair fight at all. He has his pockets full of money, of Sheriff Gillespie money. That's how Sheriff Gillespie won his election and his re-election or whatever, because he slandered everybody. There was a great police officer out there, Lori Bish, all right, B-I-S-C-H. She was awesome. She's an awesome person. You, Gillespie, are a fucking coward. You, Lombardo, are nothing but a fucking goon. Listen to your fucking name. You're a fucking goon, all right? You're a fucking mafia type. And I'm not running for sheriff, but I am campaigning against you, Joe Lombardo. You fucking goonie. You fucking traitor. You fucking tyrant. Fuck you. It doesn't matter if you get elected, you are not my sheriff. Gillespie, you are not my sheriff. You do not have no say over me at all. The fucking voting system is fraudulent when you guys can fucking have your pockets lined with so much money that the other guy can't even have a fucking say-so in the contest, all right? And you probably will win. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm not going to fucking, you are not my fucking sheriff, and you will never be my sheriff. And Latinos, which makes up most of fucking voters out here and most of why everything's fucked up here in Nevada, because you vote with your fucking heads up your ass. You vote for whatever the fuck they tell you. I want to tell you something, Latino people here in Las Vegas, in Southern Nevada, in Clark County. You will have your brothers, mothers, sisters, fathers, all your family picked apart, killed, and this man will defend. Gillespie, all these guys are cops. They will fucking back whatever fucking action any police officers take. So remember, when you're voting for Joe Lombardo, you're voting for your possible any family member to be murdered, and that fucking Lombardo and Gillespie will come to the rescue of the cop. They will not fight for the people. They are not constitutional sheriffs. He's not a constitutional undersheriff. All right? So Joe Lombardo is a piece of trash. He's a traitor. He's a total traitor. If I could go on and on and on and give you facts and facts upon facts about Joe Lombardo. He's a fucking goonie. Gillespie is a piece of shit. Both of you need to resign. Period. You don't even deserve to wear that fucking badge. You are both traitors. You are both tyrant bootlickers. You are in bed with Harry Reid. You are in bed with Obama. You are in bed with the fucking everything that is bad about this country. Everything that is evil. You guys are pure fucking evil. So if you get elected, Joe Lombardo, you are not my fucking sheriff. And I told you to your fucking face. Everybody that wants to check it out or whatever, you could check out any interview when he was out there standing amongst the people and he's saying, oh, people were yelling at me this. No, it was me yelling at you. Anthony Herrera yelling at you, calling you a coward, calling you a fucking tyrant and a traitor. And I told you, you work for us. We don't work for you. That's what I was screaming. I didn't use any fucking profane language, really. I just called you what you were. And if that means that we were cussing you out, well, I'm glad that you heard me. I was standing right there. You fucking saw me. You know. And I even asked you, why are those snipers on the mountain? And you know what Joe Lombardo said? I asked Joe Lombardo, why are there snipers up on the mountain? And he fucking pointed at me and he said, look what you guys are carrying. Look at the way you guys are dressed. That's why they're on the hill. He justified having snipers on the fucking up on the mountain pointed at women and children because the way we were fucking dressed and what we were exercising our constitutional rights. So you need to fucking think, Las Vegas, when you go to fucking vote for this guy, if there's any hope at all, if there's any legitimacy to the fucking election, you need to vote anybody but this guy.
To laugh at someone who's barfing and pooping, but the irony in this story is just too much. There's an event called the Food Safety Summit. It's one of those giant expo and conference events that take over a hotel and there's lots of people with lanyards walking around, shaking hands and doing business with each other. It was just held at the Baltimore Convention Center in Maryland, and over 1,500 people attended. The summit is designed to, quote, meet the educational and informational needs of the entire food industry, including growers, retailers, distributors, operators, regulators, and academia. Attendees from hundreds of corporations were there. Pepsi, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, the Marriott, Target, Costco. Name a corporation with food interests, and it was there. And then speakers from the FDA, the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, all of these government food experts all give talks about how to ensure food safety when feeding people on massive scales. The talks have names like Preparing for and Responding to Natural Disasters and What You Need to Know About Water Quality Standards. Courses are also given where attendees can get certifications they need from the government to run their big giant food corporations. They stage mock food recalls, and they do meet and greets with regulators, so these corporate guys can get FaceTime with the government guys, and they can all do their secret handshakes together or something. You get the idea. It's a giant event where all the big guys in the U.S. food safety industry all get together to share all of the information they know with each other. It's a great opportunity to grease the wheels of our corporate and government food business. And supposedly, the people there are the best and the brightest that our country has to offer. These are the absolute experts about food safety. Which is why it's pretty funny that over 100 of them started barfing and had diarrhea all over the place with terrible cases of gastroenteritis after attending the summit. Some are suspecting some kind of foodborne illness or food poisoning, but all these geniuses haven't figured out what caused it yet. So all of these food safety experts got together and got sick from food probably, and they have no idea why. If that's not perfect irony that illustrates the sham of our government and corporate food regulation, then I don't know what is. Tonight, let's talk about that by following me on Twitter @TheResident.
Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you, consider you God, and will kill for you?
I love you.
Don't you want to become a cult leader? Since the death of God, there's been a vacancy open. You could fill that void. Here's how. Structure your cult like an onion with the most benign and helpful features on the outside and the most controlling, kooky, and evil parts at the secret inner core. Use deception. Don't tell them who you really are. Lie, leave out important information, or distort information.
Are you trying to recruit me? No. I'm just trying to share something meaningful with you.
Establish front groups.
We're a Bible study group.
We're a management course. We're a meditation center.
We're a world peace organization.
We're a personal development center.
We're a drug rehab center.
Promise to fulfill their dreams.
Don't you want a world of unconditional love and brotherhood? We have the secrets to self-improvement. You can join us and be special.
Join our elite mission to save the world. We can teach you special powers. Personal power.
Psychic power.
Past life connection. Telekinesis.
Offer them something free and get them to feel obliged to give you something in return.
Well, we gave you that free dinner. The least you could do is come to our weekend intensive.
You can tell them time is running out and that they must make their decision now or it will be too late.
This is your only chance to make it. Don't blow it.
It's important to make this commitment now.
This is an issue of burning urgency.
Don't give them time to think. Diminish doubting commiseration by separating your new recruits from each other. Surround them with happy, true believers, so when in doubt, they will tend to do what everyone around them is doing and believe that is normal. Start with a prolonged period of love bombing. Surround them with unconditional love and attention. Your cult family should act friendly and interested. Get information and hone their weak spots.
Tell us about yourself.
Take this personality test.
And then use this information to manipulate them.
Gradually, over time, you'll begin to shape the recruit's behavior by granting or withholding this love and attention. After they've bonded, slowly start making your demands upon them. The message being,
nothing in this world has value unless it relates to the leader or the ultimate purpose.
Control their behavior.
Come live with us.
Wear these clothes.
Eat this food. All you need is 2 hours sleep.
Prescribe a rigid schedule. Keep them active and with as little sleep as possible. If you can, restrict their eating habits to low-protein food. Control their thoughts.
Our ideology answers all questions to all problems.
Let our doctrine think for you.
Control their emotions. Induce guilt.
The United States dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima.
People are dying of starvation.
People are dying of starvation.
You are not living up to your potential.
You are not living up to your potential.
You cheated on that test.
And fear.
The enemy will electroshock you, torture you,
kill you, or carry you off to hell.
Control information. Keep them from knowing all the workings of the cult.
Block out any information which is critical of the group.
Encourage members to spy and report on one another. Separate the recruit from himself by attacking the self and inducing a mental breakdown disguised as a spiritual awakening. When they start to freak out, have side effects, or hallucinate, tell them they are flushing out the bad stuff inside.
When I was meditating, I felt an infinite emptiness. It was utterly terrifying.
No, this is good. You're transforming. Do it more.
You are reaching God.
You're being reborn. You are becoming one with the universe, one with our family.
Make them paranoid about their own bodies or thought processes.
You're battling your sinful nature. Your body is detoxifying.
Tell them that there is a part of their mind they must eliminate in order to find happiness.
You must eliminate the toxic mind.
Your ego. Your ego is the source of all your problems. I don't know who I am anymore.
Good. Now you're free. In fact, there was no you there to begin with.
Claim authority. It can come from a divine source.
Your Bible clearly states that I am the Messiah.
Bogus scientific research.
Scientific studies prove my techniques work.
Or special knowledge.
I am the enlightened master of the universe.
Make up stories about yourself to boost your importance.
I invented air. I have special access to the aliens.
But don't be stupid about it. Start slowly. A good con man takes a little bit of truth and a lot of lies and pulls the wool over the eyes of the ignorant. Induce trance states and self-hypnosis by practicing thought-stopping rituals and repetitive acts like dancing, spinning, singing.
We love the leader is love. When I'm not with him, I feel like a schlub. We love the leader is love. When I'm not with him, I feel like a schlub.
Over-breathing. And chanting.
Stamp out doubt, 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 stamp out doubt.
Stamp out doubt, stamp out doubt, stamp out doubt.
Practice prolonged hours of meditation. In these trance states, they are more receptive and suggestible. Revert them back to childhood dependence and mindless obedience. Encourage separation from their family.
Your friends and family probably won't understand.
Your friends and family probably won't understand.
It doesn't sound like your family and friends really love you if they can't support your new decision.
Maybe you should stay away from them. It's unhealthy for you to be around unenlightened people anyway.
If you can't recruit your friends, cut off from them.
Stop wasting time with non-believers.
Stop wasting time with non-believers.
Encourage dependency and conformity, and discourage autonomy and individuality.
The whole purpose must be the focus. The self-purpose must be subordinated.
The whole purpose must be the focus. The self-purpose must be subordinated.
Have confessionals where people demonize their early lives and only praise their life in the group. Rewrite the past as terrible, even if it was great.
Before I came to eMERGE, I was a bad person. I was greedy, misguided, self-centered, and lost. My life is wonderful now. I hate my old life.
Before coming to eMERGE, I was always in my ego. My toxic mind was running my life. I was a sinful, negative loser. Thanks to the leader, every day I'm a winner.
Isolate them from the rest of the world. Make them feel part of a special elite group with an important mission.
Monuments and historical landmarks will someday be erected to commemorate us and our sacrifices.
Tighten your group's bond by establishing scapegoats and enemies. Demonize outsiders as less than human, biased, corrupt, or conspiring against the group. Develop an us versus them mentality. Fighting resistance. Tell them their critical thoughts are evidence that they have committed crimes against the group. Start investigating them and make up crimes.
I think I want to leave.
You must be insane.
Make them feel guilty.
We're doing important work here.
You expect saving the world is easy?
We're all called upon to make some sacrifices for the cause.
Just when things get tough, you want to give up.
You're weak.
Do you want to move forward toward freedom and enlightenment? Or do you want to fall back into your old dirty ways?
What's more important, our mission?
Our family?
Eternal salvation?
Or your petty grievances?
You're being negative,
ignorant,
selfish,
and sinful.
Our leader is flawless.
The doctrine is flawless.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. Indoctrinate with fear. Tell them that they could be possessed by evil spirits, or suggest that if they should ever leave, something bad could happen to them.
I'm just warning you that without us, you're liable to get into a bad accident, get sick, or even die.
I'm warning you. Without us, you're likely to get into a bad accident, get sick, or even die.
If
If you leave, you'll just be reincarnated into a lower life form.
Make it easier for them to die for you by calling their bodies containers that are shed before they evolve into higher life forms. It's that simple. Now, don't you want to become a cult leader? Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you, and will kill for you?
I will do what you say for the cause. I will leave my family for the cause. I will give you my money for the cause. I will give you my body for the cause. I will die for the cause. I will kill for the cause.
I love you.
Not a joke, guys. Remember the Hale-Bopp comet? Where they're all laying dead with the Nike tennis shoes? And how many friends do you have on Facebook talking about being enlightened and I'm a goddess this and goddess that? And don't let your ego get in the way. Folks, you're surrounded by people who are in cults.